You've heard it said that all hard work brings a profit. Today, let's explore that.
You are listening to Wealth Talks with the McPhees, and we're going to talk about how hard work brings a profit, and specifically, we're going to talk about how this works into the life benefits formula. You know, just the other day, we were having a group discussion with some people, and the life benefits formula came up. People were wanting to know, how does this different from the perpetual wealth code? And we're going to talk a little bit about that, explore exactly what is the life benefits formula today and what that means for you.
Well, John, we've come a long way since IBC was introduced to us in 2004. And IBC is a concept that changed my life, and I'm forever grateful to Nelson Nash for writing the book, Becoming Your Own Banker, and being a friend of ours and speaking so frequently for our people to understand that life insurance is a tool to help you manage money better and to recover the cost of interest that most people are losing. But over the years, we found that a lot of people thought that IBC was just a magic formula or a product that you purchased, and all of a sudden tomorrow you were wealthy. And that couldn't be further from the truth, because even Mr. Nash in his book said it was going to take 20 to 25 years to build a system of whole life insurance policies that could finance all your needs. So over the years, we developed the Perpetual Wealth Code to show people how it was a process, not a product. Mm-hmm. And now we've come out with the life benefits formula, because still so many people thought that you could just borrow from a life insurance, pay it back with interest, and everything would be hunky-dory, and you'd retire rich and, you know, bring this huge legacy onto everybody.
Yeah. And you know, some people will probably always think that, because people like to look for the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. It seems to be something that's built into human nature to want to speculate, to think things are better than they are, and then sometimes to write them off as worse than they are when it doesn't work out in some way, shape, or form for them particularly.
Well, you know, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. Mm-hmm. There's always work in the process. You know, people can look at wealthy individuals and say, oh, they've got it so easy. And, you know, I think of the old ABBA song, Money, Money, Money. If I was I'll marry me a rich man, or go to Las Vegas or Monaco, and then I'll be wealthy and we won't have to worry about it. But the truth of the matter is that type of wealth, it's not real wealth, because it's fleeting. And the statistics show that when people win something like that or come into a great amount of money, within 5 years, they're worse off than they were before they came into it. And so there's more to becoming wealthy and building a wealth that is going to be sustainable than just, oh, poof, there it is.
So you wrote about this in your new book, How to Build Sustainable Wealth. What exactly is the life benefits formula to create sustainable wealth?
Well, if we were to write it out like a mathematical formula, it would look something like this. Work plus mutual respect plus education times your faith.
So all those three summed together times your faith, okay?
Will equal sustainable wealth.
Okay.
We didn't put anything in there about money, because wealth is something that we've always said is what you have left after all your money's gone.
Certainly one way to think about it.
So it's important that wealth is more than just money. We're not after seeing how much money we can hoard away, because as the scripture tells us, our gold and our silver will perish because it is not sustainable.
Mm-hmm. So let's look at each one of these components of the life benefits formula and break it down a little bit more. The first one, work. That's necessary in order to create sustainable wealth. Why is it necessary?
Well, King Solomon said years ago that all hard work brings a profit. And that might just might not be that you profit materially from that. It might be something that you learn spiritually or physically. You might get stronger, or but that doesn't necessarily, like, just because I go out and dig a ditch that I'm going to get some money for it. Or but if the work itself is something that is preparing me for something better. So whether I'm just digging a ditch and I don't get paid for it, at least I got stronger. Okay? Or at least I transported something through that ditch to where I need it to be. So the work itself is character building, and character is part of wealth.
Okay. So what about the mutual respect piece that comes in there?
Mutual respect, I find that a lot of people don't respect themselves enough to even insure their life. They don't think their life is worth it, and they go, and they won't even take the time to see that their human life value is worth something. And so they fail to even look at insurance because they say, oh, I can make a higher interest rate someplace here or there. But they're failing to see that if they were gone, what would replace their income? So we have to respect ourselves, first of all, as an individual, and we have to respect others because we can't expect to gain at someone else's expense. That doesn't create upward mobility for anybody. Even the people that collect those wealth, it doesn't do them any good because they know deep down that they got it by deceit or fraud.
So there's a couple different ways to get wealth. You can either get it by deceit or fraud, and this is how many people think that the wealthy have become wealthy. Some of them have.
And I would argue that those people are wealthy. I would just say they're filthy rich.
Yeah.
Okay? Because they have collected their money in an illicit way. It doesn't make them wealthy. Wealthy has to do with your character, has to do with everything. So you can't, those people are miserable. Look at Howard Hughes. He died a miserable bum with billions of dollars. And there's other stories to show that. When you don't get your money in an honest fashion, or you start letting your money control you, you're not respecting other people. There's no mutual respect there.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter what order it comes in. If you got the money badly, or if you got the money in a good way, and then it corrupts you.
That's correct.
It doesn't matter which way it happens. The point is that you've become compromised.
Going back to the work section, I can't emphasize enough the story that Jesus talked about, where the guy said, hey, I've got plenty. I'm going to tear down the barns I do have, and I'm going to build bigger ones, and I'm going to cram them full, and I'm going to kick back, and I'm going to put my feet up, and I'm going to say, man, you've got it made. And God said, you fool, today you're going to die, and who's going to get all your wealth that you stored up for yourself? Work is something that we're going to do for the rest of our life. I believe we're going to work in heaven once we get there. Otherwise, it would be a very boring place. There's always work to be done, and we shouldn't look at work as the evil. God created man, he put him in the garden to tend and work the garden. It wasn't until man sinned that the work became something that man resented. And so we should get our mind straightened around that work is something that is good to do, fun to do, enjoyable, productive. Those are the things that are part of the life benefits formula when we say work.
Totally. And that does interrelate with mutual respect, because when you have mutual respect for others, it's easier to enjoy the work because you're serving them.
Well, mutual respect is doing something that is going to bring value to other people, and then in the exchange of that value, there's wealth produced for both sides.
Sure. So what about the education component that we add to work and mutual respect?
Well, I think the education part for me was the infinite banking concept. Okay. I'd read about economics for years. I had been exposed to Ludwig von Mises' Human Action years before I met Nelson Nash. I I used to read the Mises Institute newsletter, and I got so disgusted with it because they could tell me the problem, but they had no solution. They just kind of moaned and groaned about everything all the time and complained about the way that we're off the gold standard and we need to get back to the gold standard. But, we're never going back to the gold standard. I really seriously doubt we'll ever go back to the gold standard because, God made man upright and he's thought out many devices, Ecclesiastes tells us. And it's too easy for governments and cartels to change and inflate the currency when they keep control of it. So I don't believe we're ever going to go back to that. And so I got very depressed about all that. But when Nelson Nash introduced the concept of life insurance as being a constant variable in our monetary system, that made so much sense to me because of the education that I learned from Mises. And it was a way to apply that knowledge to a standard that was acceptable to our current day. Jesus in his high priestly prayer prayed that we would use the things of the world to glorify him. He didn't pray that God would take us out of the world, but to use the things in the world. And so we live in a certain society. We've got to learn to use the tools that are being used in the society, or we can't not be successful.
So something you said there, that the life insurance is a constant. There's two ways that we can look at that. And one is that the life insurance is kind of like buying a piece of property, only that the value of that piece of property is not going to go up and down with the market. It's going to be a constant there. It's not to say that life insurance is not affected by inflation, because it is, but
everything's affected by inflation.
Exactly, but the benefit that you get from it is a constant.
Yes, it's a guaranteed contract.
And it's a constant that will grow. Guaranteed.
Yeah. And I would argue that even gold and silver are affected by inflation as much as Mises and all those people, libertarians, say that it isn't. Because, I bought silver and gold 20 years ago, and I still cannot get my money back out of that, of what I paid for it. Inflation does affect everything.
Yeah, it does. And just think about when silver was mined during the Civil War here in Nevada. The mines up in Virginia City, Nevada, were producing silver like it was going out of style. It helped finance the Union War effort. And there was a lot of inflation that happened, both with paper currency, but even just the supply of silver changing during that time.
That's correct. And, in the 49ers gold rush, a loaf of bread was selling for, the equivalent of $200 today. That's inflation. Yeah, gold itself wasn't inflated, but you just had to spend more of it to get what you needed. I mean, inflation happens.
It does.
Because man was made upright and he's thought out many devices.
Yeah, interesting. So the education is understanding what's going on in the world and how you can work with the existing system. We don't want to create an isolated ivory tower in the clouds where we try to create the ideal situation for living out a perfect life. That's impossible in the fallen world. But you want to understand what's happening so that you can shrewdly use the tools in the world to achieve good goals.
And part of that education system is understanding when it makes logical sense to take a policy loan to finance something and when it doesn't. And many people that have followed Nelson Nash and teach what they call the infinite banking concept will tell you that you should always finance everything out of your bank, quote unquote. Well, first of all, the life insurance policy is not a bank. The insurance companies won't let you call it that, and many states say if you call it that, you can't even sell insurance in their state. The life insurance policy becomes a depositor. The insurance company actually uses your policy as collateral, and they actually then will loan you money, very much like the banking system works, where we loan the bank money when we make a deposit.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the type of education that we share, because without the full understanding and knowledge, then people can use a good system and still not produce the results they're looking for. So does it make sense to borrow money from the life insurance company at a higher interest rate than what you can borrow it from somebody else? Well, maybe, but you got to do the math and get educated to find out why that could be or why it could not be. The bottom line is how much money is it allowing you to keep if you finance something with your life insurance policy as collateral rather than using someone else's money or even your own money.
Yeah, that's good. So next we come to the faith component of the life benefits formula, and the importance of this component is denoted in the life benefits formula by the fact that it multiplies everything else.
It does.
By the factor of faith. So what is faith in the when it comes to the life benefits formula? In what respect are we referring to it here?
Well, I think Rabbi Lappin maybe helps us understand this more than anything, because he said the term business person or businessman is the word faith in Hebrew, because we are always looking to the future for a better future than it is today. Something tomorrow is going to happen better than it happened today, based on what I did today. And insurance companies understand this better than anybody. They, in good faith, sell policies for pennies on the dollars of what they're going to pay out in death claims, knowing or having the faith that they're going to be able to take the premium dollars that you pay, the pennies you pay today, and pay out dollars tomorrow to someone when you die. And they've been doing that for hundreds of years. They believe in the future. They understand the future. They scientifically and statistically have tried to figure out what's going to happen in the future. And so we need to have that kind of faith as well, knowing that as long as there's life, there's hope, and that our faith is the one that is going to drive us to continue to strive to be better and make this world a better place than when we came into it.
So at an individual level, you know, we talked about how faith works at the insurance company level, how they put these factors into place. There's still a component there that they guarantee then for the policy owner so that you have that security. What about when you decide to take a policy loan and leverage and use that money yourself? How does the faith factor come into play there?
Well, you have to realize that if you take a policy loan and it's going to cost you 4 or 5% annually, then you have to believe that you can take and use that money that you've borrowed and produce a greater return than what you're going to have to pay back to the insurance company. Mm-hmm. And someone will say, well, the insurance company doesn't really require you to pay it back. That's true. But if you don't pay the interest that you owe, then your policy will begin to be eroded, and eventually it'll cannibalize itself and die.
It starts to compound.
Yeah. And so, then we have to understand what was attributed to Einstein. Interest is the eighth wonder of the world. Compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. And what we say, never let it work against you. Mm-hmm. Because, it will kill you. It's like bleeding to death slowly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when we put the life benefits formula together, we put it all together, we make it work, and it ends up at sustainable wealth. We talked about this lightly a little bit earlier. Many people think of wealth as a big pile of money. Maybe you do want to accumulate a certain amount of money for some security at some point in the future, but is sustainable wealth really a pile of money?
It isn't, because when you look to money, the scripture tells us it will make itself like an eagle and fly off to heaven, because it is a material possession. It is not security. No amount of money will give you the security that you need. People that have hoards of money don't think they have enough. Mm-hmm. People that don't have any money realize they don't have enough. You know, it's a very fleeting thing. That is not what we're working for. We are working to be better stewards of what has been given us. And Jesus talks about the story of the minas in Scripture. And he talks about each person is given the amount of money according to their ability to manage it. The first two people managed what they were given very, very well and doubled it. The third person was given what he could manage, and he didn't do anything with it. In fact, as he was fearful, had no faith in the future, had no faith in the person that gave it to him, he dug a hole and buried it in the ground. And when the master came back to review what was happening with these stewards that he had given money to, he condemned the third person for not allowing his money to earn interest while he was gone.
Yeah.
The least
you
thing,
could have done.
The least
Just
he could
allow
have.
it to earn
And he said,
interest.
"You evil and worthless servant, take what he has and give it to the person who manages the most, the best. Because he who has, more will be given to him, and he who has not, even that which he has, will be taken away from him." This is the story of success. This is sustainable wealth. When we get to this level, it's not about the money, it's about the stewardship. It's about taking care of what we have been given. And that goes along with, it doesn't matter how much money you're making right now. You could be making minimum wage, you could be making $1 million a month. It doesn't matter what you're making, it's how much money you keep of what you make that matters. And when we say keep, that doesn't mean hoarding or storing it away or saving it up or investing it. Keeping money is like keeping a relationship. You've got to nurture it. You've got to take care of it. You've got to grow it. You've got to, pay attention to it. If you don't keep it, you're going to end up trying to save it.
At this point, in order to reach that point where you have a lot of cash flow coming in, but you're not necessarily hoarding it up, you're keeping it at work, what does that mean for somebody? How does that relate to the perpetual wealth code? Because the perpetual wealth code is really focused around the velocity of money, how often you're using that money.
That's correct.
In order for someone to build sustainable wealth, they're going to have to master the perpetual wealth code, aren't they?
That's part of the education process. Yeah. And as Einstein said, any fool can know. The point is to understand. I remember having a patient years ago. She read incessantly. She probably read a book a day. But she was one of the most ignorant people I've ever met because she never really understood anything she read. To understand it means that you do something with it, that you have the ability to use the knowledge that you're gathering. So it doesn't do any good. And that's why we use the term education in the life benefits formally instead of schooling. Schooling, I say, is for fish. You can herd people all over and do what you want with them, but education comes from the word to elucidate, to enlighten. We need to be enlightened about what is really happening so that we can do something different than all the masses that are being schooled in society. And that's what, the first half of the book that we just released, How to Build Sustainable Wealth, is all about. The things that everybody's been schooled in that are the right thing to do that are not adding up. Otherwise, there wouldn't be, the dependency on Social Security for 90% of retirees today. Retired women wouldn't be dependent on Social Security for 97% of their income. 1/3 of seniors wouldn't be in poverty without, today 1/3 of seniors would be in poverty without Social Security. Those are the things that the masses have done because they've been schooled rather than educated. And they end up dependent on the government or somebody else's goodwill. A statistic the other day, people between the age of 40 and 60 are given between $1,000 and $5,000 a year to their parents because their parents weren't able to manage money well enough that they need just their basic needs covered by their children.
Wow.
This is horrible. This is what we need to do to stop, and the life benefit formula is the solution to that. We need to work, We need to respect other people and ourselves. We need to become educated about what is really happening to our money when we let the money managers manage it and the financial planners plan for it. And we need to have faith that tomorrow can be better than today if we do our part. Mm-hmm. And then we don't have to worry about tomorrow because tomorrow will take care of itself.
Yeah. That's peace of mind.
That's peace of mind.
When you follow it, that's peace of mind. But it does take that element of faith and those other three factors, the work, the mutual respect, and the education. You have to put all of those together, and only then does faith have something to multiply.
That's correct.
To create real sustainable wealth. So you're listening to Wealth Talks. You can get a copy of the book, How to Build Sustainable Wealth, on our website, life-benefits.com. We'll include the link in the podcast resources for you here today. You can reach us for help implementing the life benefits formula in your own life at 702-660-7000. You could also call us if you prefer to order the book over the phone. So give us a call, 702-660-7000, or visit the website, life-benefits.com, and we'll see you back here next week.